Springfield's News and Talk, talking with State Senator Steve McClure. When can people head to a town hall about the Safety Act?
This Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Piper Glen Golf Course in Springfield. That's October 19th. We're going to have State's Attorney Gray Knoll, State's Attorney Dan Wright, Sheriff Jack Campbell, and State Representative Sandy Hamilton. It's free. It's open to the public, and no one needs to RSVP. They can just show up.
So what are you going to be covering? Of course, we hear some sides saying there's tons of misinformation out there. We've got other sides that are saying that, no, this is a purge law. Is it somewhere in between?
It's somewhere in between, yeah. I think the most disturbing thing about the Safety Act was that it was passed at 4:30 in the morning, and there was not a single committee hearing on the actual language of the legislation. I gave the main speech against it. I had about 10 minutes roughly to review a 764-page bill. And then in the middle of the debate, if you listen to it, Senator Sims either didn't know what was in his bill or was trying to mislead members of the Senate before they voted on it as to what was in it. And a lot of the discussion at the time was, this is going to not take effect for a while, so we can change this. There's been 2 trailer bills that were supposed to change some things. It's a bill that barely passed in the state Senate and passed by 1 vote in the House at 4:30 in the morning with no committee hearings. It's bizarre to me that some in the media and the Democrats are just talking about how, don't believe all the ridiculousness about this bill. It's really a wonderful bill. If it's so wonderful, why not pass the bill at 4:30 in the afternoon and have actual hearings on it and have it take effect sooner, much sooner than it was? The reason that it didn't take effect sooner is because it was such a bad bill. The reason it was at 4:30 in the morning is because it was such a bad bill. And we're the people being reasonable. That's why over half of the sheriffs and state's attorneys have filed lawsuits against this bill. And there's a bipartisan group of 100 state's attorneys from all parts of the state that are against the bill. And the only 2 state's attorneys that are for the bill are probably the 2 worst state's attorneys in the country.
We're talking with Republican State Senator Steve McClure about the Safety Act and a town hall he's got coming up later this week. We'll get more details out there for you. But what are some of the largest issues that need to change with the Safety Act? And do you think it just needs to be repealed entirely and then start over from scratch?
It needs to be repealed entirely and start over from scratch. It contradicts itself. It's confusing. It's got issues with mainly the main issue here is discretion of judges. The judge needs to be able to hold anyone charged with a serious felony. We're talking about burglary, arson, kidnapping. They need to be able to hold these people in pretrial detention before trial if they're a danger to the public as a whole. And the fact that this limits the ability of a judge to hold people charged with certain offenses, including, by the way, Greg, witness intimidation. So, you've got people in this state that are victims of shootings. In fact, we had a shooting in downtown Springfield. And most of these shootings go unsolved. Why do they go unsolved? Because the witnesses that actually see things are fearful. If they testify, these shooters that will randomly shoot up downtown Springfield, for example, will come after them or their family or do a drive-by shooting at their home. How do you protect them? By making sure that if people are going to intimidate them, they're going to be locked up before trial so they cannot intimidate these witnesses before they can testify. And it's essential that judges be able to lock these people up. The fact that the governor and the Democrats think that these people should not be locked up when they're intimidating witnesses and trying to avoid prosecution, avoid justice, is just insane.
State Senator Steve McClure with us on WMAY. Give us the details on the Safety Act town hall you're holding again.
It will be Wednesday, October 19th, this Wednesday, 6 p.m. at Piper Glen Golf Course.
So if people have questions, they can go there and have that conversation with that town hall, and it's going to feature a variety of individuals who have intimate knowledge about this. What do you think are the chances that this is actually going to be addressed after the election, and should lawmakers come back before the election to get this thing changed and put votes on the books?
I think there will be some sort of a bill after the election, and I think that it should be done before the election so that people can be held accountable for whatever vote they take on this new bill and whatever is in this new bill. I think it's very ironic that the Safety Act basically tries to not hold people accountable for their crimes. And so don't you think that we should hold the people voting on the Safety Act accountable when they vote before the election? So I think it needs to happen before the election. Otherwise, I mean, I assume there's going to be some sort of a bill, but who knows? And who knows how extensive it's going to be? Is it going to fix all the incredible problems in the bill? It probably won't. So it should happen before the election, and we'll see what happens.
Senator Steve McClure with us on WMAY. Something else that's, of course, in the news is the latest developments in the corruption saga of major utilities. It's no longer just ComEd now. AT&T apparently was having do-nothing jobs for Madigan allies. Have we heard the last of this? And what needs to be done to actually curb this type of behavior in the future?
Well, I don't think we've heard of the last of it. You never know who's going to be next. It could be a member of the Senate or the House. It could be another group outside of the Capitol. And
well, you did have Emil Jones popped about, 2-3 weeks ago or so?
That's right. That's right. And what needs to be done is we need to give the Legislative Inspector General much more power and much more ability to investigate wrongdoing without having to go to members of the General Assembly to get permission. And we have to give, honestly, the Attorney General more authority to investigate bad acts as well that involve the legislature and people that lobby the legislature. So, we also need lobbyist reform. Legislators should not be lobbyists. And I think I'm very troubled by the revolving door that does still exist between legislators that leave the General Assembly to become lobbyists.
Now, one of the main criticisms that was raised by House Republicans Friday was that the House rules Madigan put in place are still very much in place, especially when it comes to how legislation flows. So if, a chairperson doesn't like something, it doesn't even get heard. It might even get pushed into a subcommittee that there are no members in. We saw that happen with Martin Sandoval, and he passed away, but he pleaded guilty to red light camera bribery by taking a piece of legislation that was not favorable to red light camera companies and put it into a subcommittee that didn't even have any members in it. And I think this was a bill that passed the House, right? But over in the House side, it's a similar type of thing. Is that still the case in the Senate? And should it still be that way, or should that change?
Yes, it's still the case in the Senate. That should change, but that really comes down to elections. When you have a supermajority of any party, quite frankly, bad things happen because the checks and balances are not there to work on behalf of the people for good government. And they've got a supermajority of Democrats, and they've got the governor's office, and so there's not much really out there to stop them from doing whatever they want, whether it's good or bad for state government.
And Senator, one last thing here, and we haven't talked about the pandemic restrictions in a while. They have been whittled down to a degree, but over the weekend, the governor signed yet another COVID-19 disaster proclamation. This takes us through the election. It's now been, since March of 2020. He's been issuing executive orders. This most recent one major change was just essentially saying that, hey, follow the CDC guidance for mask usage, which really is just, you can wear a mask if you want to. What's going on here? And should there be some more accountability and checks in the governor's ability to consecutively issue these disaster proclamations?
Right. The governor should stop issuing these, and he needs to come to the legislature to vote. That's the way that our state is built to function, with a functioning Senate and House along with the governor. We're supposed to be working together. And if he thinks that we need to keep declaring emergencies in this state, then have a hearing in the Senate, have a hearing in the House, and let us know why. Because these sort of orders that are continuously done without any approval from either body are ridiculous, and they're an overreach of his power, and in my view, it needs to stop.
Well, what does it say about the actual, leadership in the Senate, the supermajority in both chambers, that they haven't made this more of an issue now? 2.5 years? How many months has it been?
Yeah, I think there's the idea, I think, among many Democrats in the House and the Senate that they would rather not deal with this. They would let the governor either win or lose on this issue, and they'd like to steer clear of it. And that's, look, we're sent to Springfield. I shouldn't say I'm sent to Springfield because I live in Springfield, but I'm already in Springfield to go to the Capitol to make tough decisions. If these people are not willing to make those decisions, they should look for employment elsewhere.
Steve McClure, he's a Republican state senator, and just a note, you do not have a challenger in this election.
That's correct.
You are running unopposed, so you're out there supporting other candidates. What kind of work you been doing?
I've been helping Sandy Hamilton, State Representative Sandy Hamilton. She's running against State Senator Doris Turner, who's ran a incredibly nasty campaign who attacked Sandy unfairly and from the beginning, before Sandy even got on the air. So when you've got a state senator like Doris Turner running for re-election who attacks somebody before they even go on the air, I think that says a lot more about Doris Turner's record than it does Sandy Hamilton's record.
Steve McClure, greatly appreciate you taking the time today. We'll talk again in the near future, I imagine, and be safe out there, all right?
Thank you very much. You too, Greg.
It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on